awesome. And just to reintroduce myself for the people who just joined, I'm Brian Nguyen. I'm a high school senior from Central Mass, and I'm an alumnus of the NSLI 2019 program during the summer in Rabat, Morocco. All right, so since you were the lead organizer of the NSLI Language Challenge and you did an excellent job, would you mind if I ask you some questions?
Yeah, of course.
All right, so what is the language challenge for people who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. So the NSLI Language Challenge is actually in its third year. It was an event that was first started by Dean, who is a former alumni rep and also an alum of the Korean program. He started it back in 2018 to have basically a community language learning event where people could share their progress and share resources. And so I took part in it back in 2018, right before I left for my program, and that was just a really productive month of self-studying for me, and it gave me a really great foundation in Korean before I left for my program. And so he continued it last year with Vanessa, and this year I thought I would carry on the tradition, so I decided to facilitate it along with Tejas and Halden, my fellow alumni reps, and yeah, so that's basically how it started. And so how it works is participants decided to study a language or multiple languages for the month of April, and it didn't have to necessarily be NSLI target languages, but we did have a lot of people who were already familiar with those, so they kept on studying them. And so what people would do was join a separate Facebook group that we had created, and in this Facebook group, people would be sharing their resources for language learning, their tips, their experiences, their progress, and also participating in weekly language challenges, which had different themes like vocabulary, grammar, writing, and so on and so forth. And so also this year we tried something a little bit different, and we had people also repost their progress with the hashtag NSLI Language Challenge. And so NSLI reposted people's progress from time to time. And basically at the end of the month, the goal was to have people send in videos of themselves speaking in their target languages, and also to send in a progress tracker. And we will soon be picking someone to win and a runner-up who will receive NSLI merch. So yeah, that is basically how the challenge works.
That's awesome. Actually, when I was first starting Arabic, I actually joined that Facebook group, and while I didn't participate in the challenge itself, I would always lurk in the Facebook group and watch the videos other participants would send, and that gave me a ton of motivation to start learning the language. So, what were some of the study techniques that participants used in the NSLI Language Challenge?
Yeah, it was actually really diverse. Some people definitely used more traditional methods like taking notes on textbook lessons, but people got really creative with it. And there were certain people who translated their favorite comics and TV shows, other people who kept blogs about their favorite Chinese dramas and the vocabulary, grammar, and idioms they learned from it. And I saw people illustrate their favorite scenes from short stories, and two participants actually got together and worked on a joint project, and they had kept an Instagram page all throughout the program to kind of share their Korean resources and their progress. And I believe that even after the challenge ended, they're continuing to post on it. So I thought that was really cool.
That's incredible. So would you say that because of the NSLI Language Challenge, participants improved in their target language skills?
I would definitely say that there were a lot of people who showed a lot of progress, especially with the participants I saw post consistently throughout the month. There were some people who grew a lot. We had a participant named Hannah who was studying Thai, I believe from zero, and at the end of the challenge, she actually submitted a video. And it was really cool because she was able to both read and write Thai and also construct basic sentences. And I think that was really amazing for her to do within just 30 days. And so I think a lot of people who were able to keep up with the challenge and really record their progress saw growth in the month for sure.
And how were you able to track that progress?
So we had people create progress trackers, and it was kind of broadly defined so that people could take it in whatever direction they wanted to, but I did create a kind of template so that people could kind of decide what they were going to do before the month started. And so in my case, I studied Malayalam, which is my mother tongue, and I haven't actually been able to speak it, but I looked up resources that I would be using throughout the month, and I wrote them down and kind of made a plan of how I would study each week so that it didn't start to get overwhelming as the month went on. And also every day I would keep track of when I studied and for how long, so I could see kind of my progress as the month went on, and just kind of check in at the end of each week to see whether I was meeting my goals, and if not, what I could do to improve the next week.
That's great. I definitely think that keeping track of your goals is the way to go when it comes to learning a language.
For sure.
And what would you say were some of the most creative ways participants demonstrate their language skills? What are your favorites?
There were a lot. People really took it in a lot of different directions, and we had a participant, Angela Lee, who made almost, I think, weekly skits of herself speaking in Korean, and it was really cute because every week she would demonstrate a different facet of the Korean language. And so in the first week, I think it was vocabulary, so she made a conversation where she was talking to a friend and kind of using all the vocabulary she was learning. And another week she focused in on a specific aspect of Korean grammar, which is the suffixes, and she kind of showed how just adding little things on the end of words can change the entire meaning of a sentence. And I thought it was really cool because she put so much effort into making these videos every week, and you could really tell that she was absorbing everything she had learned. And even at the end, she made a really cool video where she went back and forth with Korean and the lyrics of songs that she liked. So it was really cute.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that even if you don't put a video up of yourself speaking the language, just being in that community and being surrounded by people who are so passionate about
for sure.
pursuing their language just motivates you intrinsically. Do you have anything else to add about the NSLI Language Challenge?
It was definitely a lot of fun, and we're sad that it's ending right now, but if you're looking for ways to continue language learning even after the challenge, or maybe if you weren't able to participate in the challenge, I definitely recommend going out there and looking into online learning communities. There's a really thriving language learning community on Instagram as well. So just go around and see other places you can interact with language learners, I guess, because they're abundant.
Yeah, definitely. Facebook, Instagram, Discord even. Yeah. And I guess now we can move on to resources people can use to learn languages during self-quarantine. Oh,
yes.
Someone asked, is the challenge going to happen again?
I will actually not be an alumni rep next year, since this is my second and last year, but hopefully other alumni reps like Tejas and Holden will decide to do it again next year. So I'm hoping, and I'm optimistic about it, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm hoping it'll happen too. It's a great opportunity for people to learn. So what would you say some of your favorite resources to practice during self-quarantine are?
I think when it comes to self-studying, a really important thing is being able to get feedback and advice from native speakers, because one thing that I've noticed a lot with myself in studying Korean and Japanese is that sometimes I would learn things from textbooks or websites, but I wouldn't be completely sure if I was using those grammar points or the vocabulary in the right way. And there were times where I could feel that my sentences were either incorrect or a little bit unnatural. And so I really encourage everyone to download 2 apps to combat against this issue. One of them is Hi Native, which I've been using for years. It's a really cool app where you can interact with native speakers of a language and ask them questions like, how do you say blank? Or does this sound natural? Can you check my pronunciation? Or what does this mean? And you can ask lots of different questions in that they have formats for them, or you could ask your own question about culture or anything like that. And so a really cool thing about it is that not only can you receive feedback from native speakers, but you can also kind of exchange language knowledge by also helping them with their English. And so I thought it's been really cool because it's made me think about parts of English that like the nuances in different words that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then the second app is Hello Talk. You may have heard of this. It's kind of like a language app that's a little less focused on like strictly language, and also but more on like making friends with like language exchange partners. And so a lot of people kind of post journal entries or like pictures of what they're doing while also practicing their target language. And I found that is a really cool way to like make friends, but also practice and be in like an environment where people like make mistakes, but also correct people.
Yeah, just to add to the making friends thing, friends are probably the number one resource in my opinion, just because the interaction with native speakers always boosts your understanding of the language itself. So the more video sessions or calls you can schedule with native speakers, the better.
Yeah, for sure. I know, especially if you're learning like a more obscure language, or if you're just not comfortable with self-studying, another method is definitely to try like italki lessons. I haven't done it myself, but I know a lot of people benefit from finding like online tutors who have like a range of different prices and they have their curriculums kind of detailed on the website as well. So if you're someone who's like studying alone and you don't really know how to get started, that can also be another resource.
Another resource that I'd like to bring up is apps. Some people enjoy using apps. I personally don't use them that much, but there are a couple apps that are going free during this quarantine, just for the next couple months. And they are Rosetta Stone, Babbel, Fluent Forever, and LingoDeer for Asian languages. So you guys can check out those.
I've heard a lot of good things about LingoDeer. And another thing, I've actually been using apps recently as well, because in studying Malayalam, I found that there is a little bit of a lack of resources online. And if you have a library membership, a lot of libraries provide free access to language learning resources. So definitely check with your local library to make sure you're taking advantage of everything that they offer, because I recently found out that my local library offers free access to Mango languages, and through that I was able to study Malayalam. So definitely check into that.
That's great. I would also say a really fun way to keep practicing your language during quarantine is to watch movies and YouTube videos in your language.
Yeah.
I think a great way, and it's also entertaining.
Yeah. Someone recently told me about a Google Chrome extension called Language Learning with Netflix, and I've been using it a lot, like so much, to watch Netflix shows with English subtitles, but also subtitles in my target languages. And it's been a really cool way to pick up vocabulary just casually, like while watching fun shows and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not always speaking formally in shows as well sometimes. So you get the exposure to the real way people speak.
For sure.
Another tip that I have, like just for language learning in general, is to practice high frequency words. And by that I mean words that you actually want to learn things you're going to use, like how to introduce yourself, or telling people what you do, or explaining what you're doing during quarantine. And the more relevant the words are to your personal life, the more they're going to stick in your head.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I always think it's a good idea to learn vocabulary in context. So instead of looking up like a huge vocabulary list and just trying to like, memorize it, which can be just kind of mentally exhausting, it's a lot easier to kind of just like write down words as you hear them, because those are also the words that are probably like most relevant to you and your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also recommend just getting a journal and writing down words you come across from newspapers or magazines, articles, or Netflix shows that you're unfamiliar with, but you keep seeing them appear. And then when you have the free time, just go ahead and research them and see what they actually mean, and try to incorporate them into your own vocabulary and use them.
I think journal entries are a really great way of making sure that you actually understand how to use a word and when to use it. And like I said, like you could upload your journal entries onto like Hi Native or sites like that, so people can tell you whether like that word is actually used in the context you think it is. So that's definitely a great way to practice.
Definitely. And So during quarantine, it's definitely really easy to become unmotivated. What are some of your best tips for staying motivated during summer quarantine?
For the past month, it has definitely been the NSLI Language Learning Challenge. Just watching everyone kind of post about their progress has made me want to study even when I don't really feel like it. And I think like a great way to stay motivated is to realize that like studying doesn't necessarily mean having to sit in front of a textbook and kind of just go through like textbook exercises. Like it can be really fun, like you mentioned, like watching YouTube videos or shows. Kind of like going back to the reasons that made you want to learn that language in the first place, and like just kind of fun ways to interact with your language. Like there are a lot of days where I don't study my target languages, but I make sure to at least expose myself to them, whether that's listening to podcasts or just watching videos and casually kind of picking up on words and grammar.
Yeah, like just to add to that, making it fun is probably one of my favorite ways to interact with my language. You can act out a skit or draw comic books. Actually, here's a book I made in Arabic.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Just for show. And just finding different ways, switching up your routine really makes language learning more interesting and it keeps you motivated. Because if you're standing in front of a textbook for like 6 hours or however long, it can get boring, honestly. So just finding different ways to incorporate your language into your daily life is a really good thing to do.
Definitely finding like different ways to interact with the language too, I think helps a lot. I think we got a question about learning languages in school and trying to learn a second outside of school. Do you have any advice for that you want to share?
So, by that, do you mean how to not confuse them? Because I know if you're learning two languages at once, it can be easy to confuse a vocabulary. Or do you have anything to add to that, Shreya?
I actually ended up learning Japanese both in school and on my own, but Korean was something I had to pick up on my own because I didn't have classes around me. So I definitely understand the struggle. To manage time. For managing time, I think it's definitely like been difficult for me to divide time like evenly between the languages. But instead of like making like very like strict schedules for myself, I kind of just let myself study whichever language I feel like that day, because I feel like that helps me stay a little bit more motivated in my case. Or also instead of studying, just like watching things helps me to do both at the same time.
I would say I do that too. I usually end up studying whichever language I feel comfortable with at the time. I take Spanish in school, and Arabic I've just been learning on my own. So I definitely think I devote more time to Arabic outside of school since I don't have formal classes and it's just a more difficult language in general. So I'd say that you should devote, if you're learning a second language outside of school and it's not the same one as your school classes, you should devote a little bit more time in your schedule just because you don't have a formal teacher or anything.
For sure. It can definitely be a little bit more difficult to like gain momentum if you have to start like by yourself. Do you have any ways you've been studying Arabic recently? Because that's really interesting.
For me, I've been going through like books as well as learning vocabulary and trying to use that vocabulary in my everyday life. So sometimes I would just try to think of what I'm doing in my head, like, oh, I'm sitting down, and I'll try to say that to myself in Arabic.
Yeah, I do the same thing all the time in Korean and Japanese. I'll like talk to myself like a crazy person just to like get in the habit of speaking a lot. Okay, we have a few questions. Advice for learning Korean, and also from Luke. Hi, Luke. How will you guys keep your target languages up in college? I can start out with the first one because I am currently learning Korean. There is a wealth of resources out there for Korean. If you're just starting out, I definitely recommend Talk to Me in Korean and How to Study Korean.com, I believe. They are really great resources. Talk to Me in Korean is super extensive for grammar and vocabulary, and they have a YouTube channel as well. And just going through all of their free grammar lessons is a great place to start and get like a strong foundation in that. As for the second question, do you want to start?
Sure. So first I want to say marhaba to Audemars Bursa. Anyway, for college, definitely I want to take a formal class in Arabic in college, so that definitely will help me for sure, as well as study abroad, because I believe college has a lot more opportunities than high school actually to pursue a language to a higher degree. You can volunteer in like local Arab communities around the area. I'll be in the city, so I'll definitely have that opportunity to just go out there in the real world and interact with native speakers. And during the summer, I would love to study abroad in an Arabic-speaking country or Spanish-speaking country.
For sure. You can definitely be involved with like student organizations on campus that like focus on maybe like helping out international students or just kind of celebrating a culture or language. And then there are a lot of other State Department funded opportunities in college as well as high school. If you didn't have the opportunity to do NSLI, or if you're looking for another way to go abroad, CLS is definitely an option.
Critical language scholarship.
Yeah. And they offer a lot of different critical languages, even more languages that are offered by NSLI. So definitely check out that side as well. And I know that there are other funding opportunities like Borin as well that people use to study abroad in the summer. And also FLAS funding. Yes, there are so many different resources out there offered by the State Department.
Yeah, there are a ton. Do you plan on taking a formal class, Shreya, in college?
Yes, I do. I'm actually kind of struggling to decide like which one to take because I want to take so many ones. Yeah,
Same with them. That's the struggle I have there.
I'd like to continue Korean and Japanese, but also take on Chinese. So I am planning to do the flagship program.
Great.
Yes.